All right, we're starting to stream. All right, we're starting to stream.
Rockin' Rad Dad Bods with opinions no one asked for on current events, politics, and all things dad. It's the Phat Dad Podcast with John, Rick, Casey, and Tyler.
Good evening, fellas. How's it going?
Good evening, Brother John. How you doing?
I'm doing well, had the week off last week. Life just had me too down. I couldn't do the podcast. There's no way I could do it. So thanks, Tyler, for taking over, hosting that, and a good gun debate talk for those that you got to check it out. If not, go back. We just had we call it emergency podcast, I believe, right? An emergency podcast.
Emergency. Hot topics.
To talk about gun control. So yeah, now we're back to our weekly show a day early. I put on Facebook, it's our day early edition. So got some vacation times planned, and with Holy Week, that starts tomorrow. So, we can't get in the way of, well, I don't know, Rick, the Catholics call it what on Good Thursday? Is it Holy Thursday? Is it Good Thursday?
Holy Thursday.
Holy Thursday.
And technically speaking, Holy Week started on Monday.
No, you know what I meant, though. The holy days of obligation, maybe? Is that what you say start tomorrow?
I don't think they're actually holy days of obligation in the Catholic Church. At least Good Thursday isn't. Yeah, or Holy Thursday. I mean, gosh, you got me confused now.
But yeah, I think in the Lutheran Church, now that I'm Lutheran, I think it's called like Monday or Maundy. I don't know, something
Monday,
like
Thursday.
Monday, Thursday. Yes. Yep. So yeah, that is tomorrow. Starts of the Good Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for those of you that are the good church going type and hit all the days. I remember as a kid going to, one of them Saturday night, and it was like 2.5 hours long, but we went to them. So what do we got tonight, guys? Tyler, you're gonna kind of take the show. I've been kind of out of it. So Tyler, you've been doing all the legwork, so I appreciate that. And we'll let you roll tonight.
All right. Well, John, you're in presenter mode right now with our PowerPoint. You can see if you can fix that. But let's start the show off like we always do with a little bit of dad talk. Rick, John, any kind of good fatherhood or dadhood moments that you want to share with our loyal viewers?
Rick, I'll let you go first because I got a prop.
You got a what?
I got a prop, so I want to be saved for next. I don't want to start off. I don't want to like go up here and then So I'll let you go first.
Oh boy, I think it's been a pretty uneventful week for us.
Nothing.
I don't think. I think I really have a whole lot. It's been pretty calm. Last day of school for the week for the kids, so they're going to be home for 5 days, which always puts a little damper on my work from home schedule routine. So
that makes it very interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I've been working from home that's like essentially like the last 12 months, almost a year, and then we've had those moments where the kids are there. Holy smokes! I've probably stolen from the company at that point in time because I don't know how much work was actually getting done. And I don't know, Rick, I get to do a lot of these Zoom calls in my job.
Mhm.
There's nothing better than my kids coming in every 10 minutes to ask for a snack, glass of water, a new show, somebody read them a book.
Yep.
Kid boss.
Last the youngest one we've been, she still goes to daycare most of the time, but it's the older two that are home. And last summer, because they were home all last summer, obviously, I mean, even before the summer, obviously in the spring when there wasn't, school going on. I would like, I have my office set up in like our sunroom. So then there's like a sliding, patio type door to go into there. And when I was on a call, I just had a sticky note that I put up there and be like, on a call, do not disturb.
Do not disturb.
You need that on-call light, that little red light that goes on phones or studios. I know radio studios have that big flashing light when they're on the air. That's what you need. I'll see if Mitchell Telecom can provide that through your phone line. Or
My children would walk right through that flashing lights, signs, closed doors, locks. It doesn't seem to bother them. Their needs come before everybody else's in their mind.
Yeah, I'm not going to vouch for the effectiveness of the sticky note, but that's what I did.
We try.
What if it was your youngest one and couldn't read? Well, she was at daycare.
She's at daycare.
Yeah, it was.
But I would, if she was home, I would generally explain to her what the sticky note meant, and then put it down low enough so it's like eye level for her.
And she'd probably follow it better than the older ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So true.
She'd go bother the older ones then.
So what I have tonight to share is this little prop that we made yesterday. Addie came home and she had an egg drop challenge where they dropped the egg from, I believe, they said 2 stories up, but I think, top of the roof. I don't know the logistics. I don't know who went up on the roof to drop them, but 9 out of the 16 survived and we were one of them. So kind of a proud dad moment there. I was a little nervous because she was she's one of those people that if it didn't work, after she put all the time into it, she might've had a meltdown. So I'm glad it worked. So yeah, we stuffed that baby full of foam. It was excellent. So yeah.
So you didn't come up with anything super creative. That's what you're telling me.
No, I went online and there's people like tying rubber bands around, like
shock
suspending
absorbers,
it in a container and all that kind of stuff. But no, we just went tried and true foam, and she worked. So proud dad moment there. So
that's a good dad moment.
And now tonight, I just drinking straight out of the bottle this week.
Nice.
The week's got me down, so we're not even going to use a cup tonight. We're just going to go straight out of the bottle. So if I sound a little goofy by the end of the show,
that's why. One thing my wife and I did last week that was kind of a neat thing and maybe a little bit out of my comfort zone, but we did. We enrolled ourselves in a parenting class. It was all about intentional parenting. And it was really cool. Like I said, a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But I would recommend anybody, we always probably can become better parents, fathers. I recommend that to anybody. We learned a lot, challenged us in some ways, had to look at some of the things we do and how we interact with our kids. But for me, one of the biggest takeaways that came out of there was just a good reminder that we are our children's role models. Whether we like it or not, we're their first role model. And if we fail in that role, culture will fill in behind us. And we can decide if that's a good thing or not. But you really are. Even your older kids, they do look up to you, even though that may not always seem that way. So you got to make sure, and they're always watching everything we do. So it's very, we talk a lot about media hypocrisy and things like that. That was another key takeaway from me is parenting authentically and not being hypocritical with what I say, do what I say, not what I do.
Wow. So that's what intentional pairing is all about, being intentional in your actions and your words and your probably emotions, facial expressions. It probably covers the whole gamut. Yeah.
And it's all about too, like, having a plan that you really can't just go in. You need to have some core values. You need to have a plan because if you don't have a plan, you're going to react in the moment Your emotions are going to get the better of you, and you're probably going to fail.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's right here in town or an online thing?
Yeah, it was right here. It was right here on town. There are resources online, but if you ever have an opportunity, these things pop up all over the place. Through church groups, community groups, things like that. They are worth your time. There's something to enroll in. It was a couple hours on a Saturday. Yeah, we're all busy, but I mean, what else? What else should we be investing our time in? For me, trying to become a better dad, I thought was worth it.
That's really cool. Go ahead, Rick.
I was gonna say, and you're right about them watching and seeing everything like that. This has just been happening recently with our 12-year-old. She's starting to like verbalize some of that stuff. Like she's like, well, if you do this, then you always do this. Like she has like she's got our tells down. She has our patterns down, and she completely like, things that we don't even realize we're doing. She has it all pinned down and knows what she expects when when certain things happen. So it's pretty crazy.
Do they go over negotiating tactics and how kids are master negotiators?
They do cover some of that stuff. In some of it comes down to whether for us there was some breaks in there, and we had some like breakouts with other parents at the table, and we kind of talked through that. Like, what do you do now? What works? What isn't working? And you were able to share some ideas back and forth. Again, it was a really cool experience.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Was it a day class? A couple hours?
Couple hours.
Wow. Sweet. Yeah, no, I'll have to check that out. No, back to your
and John, it wasn't even state ordered. So I thought it was pretty good.
You didn't break any laws or anything to have to, no judge told you to go to this. Were there people that were ordered by judges to go to the class?
Not in this one.
Yeah, what you mentioned about culture is cool because we call it temple talk at the beginning of our church. Basically, I did a temple talk to kind of promote our youth program that we do Wednesday night. And I was searching for a Bible verse about teaching our youth, but I didn't come up with a Bible verse, but I came up with a saying that somebody had, a quote, and it says, if we don't teach our children to follow Christ, the world will teach them not to. And so that's kind of almost going to what you're kind of saying, you got to teach them to do what's right and wrong, and you got to be the example, because don't expect culture to do anything of that sort, to teach religion, parenting, right from wrong, because, we'll talk about maybe later the little Nas shoes, the demon shoes. I mean, our culture is not going to teach them to do the right things anymore. That is so far out the window.
Yeah, they're looking for someone to help shape and guide them, and if you don't provide that, they're gonna go find it somewhere else, and they'll find it out, in culture, and sometimes there'll be good stuff, and sometimes it won't be so good. So it's very careful. We got to be very careful in again, intentional on how we're raising our children.
All right. Any other dad moments? Or we're going to kick it to Tyler's first segment. My favorite part of our show.
John. We'll dive deep into our next topic. Do a little chewing of the fat. Tonight, we thought we'd dive into some of the highlights of the Biden presidency so far. Talk about what's working well, maybe what's not working so well. One of the biggest topics, I think, is money, money, money. We've had some massive spending bills come through. We just President Biden today rolled out two more. There are plans for two more. An interesting stat that I heard this week that I think is kind of cool. I keep telling people about it. This comes from, of all people, again, I think we quoted him last week or 2 weeks ago, Bill Maher. But he said that if we convert the money that we spent to fight World War II into real dollars, into 2021 money, that equates to about $4 trillion. It cost us about $4 trillion to win World War II, defeat Nazism and the Japanese Empire. Nuclear weapons, the tanks, everything. We have spent so far over $6 trillion on COVID. We spent a lot of money. and that's not all under Biden. Obviously, a lot of that falls under the Trump presidency as well. But we have more coming. So that's our first topic. So, brothers Mueller, what do you guys? What do you think? How does this taste to you?
Well, first we should probably say that Casey's can't join us tonight. I don't know if we even mentioned that. So
Oh yeah, we didn't fire him, right? He's just
Yeah.
not here.
Yeah, we didn't really want to mention him. He's gone. He gone. No, Rick or somebody's got to take over for the passionate Casey side on some of these topics. So somebody's got to get angry at some point. And but no, the money thing is, we used to talk about spending bills in the billions, and now if it doesn't start with the T in the trillions, we don't even think it's a big deal. So it's crazy to me the amount of money that's being spent and given out, and
John, you're not wrong. Direct quote or a quote today from AOC, one of the representative from New York. This new 2.2 trillion plan, not enough money. Direct quote.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Oh, yeah. No, it's crazy. It's at some point it's paper money, it's fun money, it's monopoly money, and at some point something's going to happen. I don't know if that's inflation. I don't know if that's something's going to crash, but at some point we're gonna pay for it.
I generally don't have as big a problem with the amount of money, the dollar amounts as a total. It's just the things that we're spending the money on that really bug me, because there's good spending and there's bad spending, right? And probably from AOC's perspective, right, if it was only targeting the things that she wanted done, that's probably plenty of money. But knowing how Washington works, you need to, pad that with what everybody else wants so that you can get anything done. But, the idea of doing an infrastructure spending bill, that kind of thing, let's do infrastructure. Let's fix our roads. Let's fix our bridges. That's an investment. That's, buying something that's real and furthering along. But, but there's inefficiencies there. Obviously it takes way too long to do these projects. They're probably drastically overspent on. But it's the other things that I have more of a problem with, the pet projects and the directed funds.
But how much of that spending that they announced today is actually going to be infrastructure?
Well, that's what I mean.
$621 billion to repair and modernize roads and bridges and highways, and to help expand public transit. Some of that money is to be invested in electric vehicles, rail systems, ports, airports. So 621 for that. There's talk of incentives for American citizens to buy electric vehicles. $300 billion to boost U.S. manufacturing. There's some really good stuff in here, actually, but there's some fat in here as well. These are big numbers. With $300 billion to boost U.S. manufacturing and strengthen supply chains. I kind of chuckled at this one. It's like almost a play out of the Trump book there. They want to cut some or eliminate some of the tax benefits for moving jobs overseas or building factories overseas. They want to get rid of that, kind of penalize you for that. I like that, I guess. I thought that was a good thing that Donald Trump was doing. $111 billion to ensure safe drinking water by replacing lead pipes. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Sometimes I look at that, is that a city or state issue? Where's the federal government? How's that work? $100 billion to expand high-speed broadband. You're going to like that, John. $100 billion to build a more resilient electric grid. We've talked about this on this show. But that is something the government should be looking at and spending our money on and going through. $213 billion to retrofit and create sustainable homes. Not exactly for sure what that means. $100 billion to build and upgrade public schools. $180 for research and development. $100 billion for workforce development programs, and countless billions as well, or more billions for gender equality, racial equality bills, practices as well in this bill.
And I can speak for a little bit of this and a little of the broadband stuff. So, South Dakota just handed a bunch of money out for broadband. What they required is companies that are 50-50. And we got some of this at my company, where we put 50% up, the state puts 50% up. Stuff gets done when it's that way you do things, and it's at the state level that handed out. Now, there was a lot of money poured into South Dakota and other states nationally to get broadband initiative, and that money was pretty much just lit on fire and thrown to the wind. There was so much national money. So in any of these projects like that, you have to bring it down to the state level. And maybe South Dakota and Iowa and one of those fiscal responsible states are going to be different than a California giving them the money and telling them to get it done right. But I think there's a right way to do things, and I think there's a wrong way to do things. And I just have a problem thinking that the national government is going to do it the right way. That's my take on it. I mean, there was a ton of money blown in South Dakota to get, like, Tyler, you should have broadband already. There was a company that was given money.
Where is my broadband, John?
What?
Where is my broadband, John?
Hopefully this fall. Hopefully by the fall we'll get Tyler hooked up. Tyler, full disclosure, is on one of the areas that we receive state funding for. So we'll get Tyler. It's a struggle, right? I mean, it's the struggle is real on something like that.
It is true, especially like I live in a rural area. You don't have a lot of options, and you don't have the same options you do in cities. I did choose to live here. We knew that going in. But as 2019 kind of threw a curveball for us, and you're living on Zoom and things like that, broadband is becoming it's a major deal. It's like the lights, needed to work.
Yeah, and Rick was part of our 2019 project for the company I work for. So he's got fiber internet to his house. So, there's a right way to do things. I like when you can subsidize things and people still have skin in the game. And I like giving it down to the state level and letting them make decisions. But that's my fear with all this stuff. It all sounds good, but the government is very, very good at, federal government anyway, at throwing money at stuff and nothing actually happens and gets done.
Yeah, like I said, I think there's some good things in this bill. I think there's some bad things in this bill. We know we've got an infrastructure problem. We need to work on it. You can argue whether that's a state or federal affair, but I'm willing to spend a little bit of taxpayer money in order to make sure our bridges aren't collapsing from underneath us, that our power grid isn't susceptible to attack, or it's going to collapse every time we have a weather event. There is a Keith. Go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
I was going to say it's just too bad that we haven't been putting money to this for a long time, a little bit at a time, to just maintain and do those things instead of trying to just throw a bunch of money at it all at once. And that's where I think that's where you're gonna find a lot of the waste and that kind of stuff.
And that's another thing. If you try to do a bunch at once, there's not the manufacturing, the back end to support that. You think about concrete plants, you think about workers, all that stuff. It's got to be spread out over a certain amount of time to get it done right. There's only a certain amount of engineering firms, or only, all that kind of stuff. So, we're going to see it on the same side back to my company, but all this money's out all over the nation to put fiber in. Well, you can't find the fiber, and the money's got to be spent this year. So what do you do? So that's kind of that stuff too. Like, that's a great point, Rick. If this was let's go over multiple presidencies, let's put this in here and let's do it right. And let's do it over the next, 8 years, and so much money, the government doesn't usually do that because every president wants to take credit for that.
And this is this 2.25 trillion is supposedly spread out over 10 years. It's, some of these projects are looking at long-term. Obviously, in order to build some of these railroads and things like that, that's stuff that we just can't do overnight. But that's an interesting point. 2.25 trillion and another 2 trillion for American worker bailout. It's got a plan on that. He also rolled out how he thinks he can pay for that. And I think, without getting into maybe too much economic theory, we put everybody to sleep. But I would like kind of your fat dad's opinion on this, because this is the stuff that really can affect all of us. We're talking about raising our corporate tax rate, which was lowered under Trump, and there's no denying it, right? We had an economic boom pre-COVID. Even during COVID, you could argue that without as strong as we're going into, that we could have had a real mess. I still think we're in a disaster, but raising from 21 to 28%, that puts us at the highest corporate tax rate out there. But one thing he said in his press conference today, 91 of the Fortune 500 companies, of course, some of the richest companies in the world, pay zero federal income tax. Amazon being one of them, and we'll have more on that later. But that's not right? That's not correct. I think that's, so he wants to put I think a 21% minimum, like everybody's, you're not going to be able to get loopholes below that. That's not a bad thing, but this is where the difference between the economic plan under Donald Trump and Joe and what we're going to see under Biden, what we saw under Obama as well, doesn't quite work the way they think it does, because this is going to come back to us. It probably isn't going to come back to us. Some of it workers will eat, right? Your merit increases and things like that. There'll be going to be less because there'll be less profits for the company. That there's no denying that. That's what happens. There's lots of economic proof of that. But the other thing, and probably the most important thing, is you're going to see a rise in cost of the goods that we purchase. Yeah. You can make an argument that, well, that only hurts the people who are buying these goods, and you have a choice whether you buy this stuff. But if Amazon goes from paying zero tax to at least a minimum of 21% tax, they're going to charge more. It's just going to happen. Your Amazon Prime rate's going to go up.
Yeah. So, so you look at a budget that, they get their budget and you see your profits go down. There's two things you can do. You can raise revenue by charging people more for stuff, or you can cut. They're not going to cut the board salaries. They're not going to cut the top exec salaries. They're going to cut workers. They're going to cut benefits. And the other thing they're going to do is they will raise prices. They're not just going to say, hey, we're going to live with less profit, because we're getting taxed more. I guarantee that won't happen. So yeah, it sounds good in theory, but it's going to be passed down to the middle class like it always is.
Right now today, how do we know that that's what we're saying is accurate? Go put gas in your car. We sort of cut supply, we changed some, and we've seen an increase in our costs. That we don't look at it, we don't call it that, but both of these are rising the price of the goods that we purchase, and I think that's retroactive because I think the poor, your poorer income families or individuals who have to spend more, a larger percentage of their money, it's a tax on them. This is a tax. People who drive, which is the most of us, especially in the Midwest, it's a tax. Our fuel costs have gone up. Now we're talking about raising the goods that the cost of the goods that we've got that you need to provide for your family. To me, it just seems backwards of what we should be doing. Let's keep expanding the marketplace and raise the tax dollars there, but or find things to cut in the government that we're currently spending that maybe we don't need to spend as much money on. I don't know. Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree that the economic results of raising taxes gets passed on to the consumer. I'm just kind of tired of this push and pull from both sides, right? We can't raise taxes because it raises goods, but we, have to spend more because the circle that we get in with this. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not necessarily smart enough to know, but it seems like when you say that there's these companies that are paying 0% federal income tax, they're not contributing whatsoever, but they're the ones that are largely controlling a lot of the policy that gets made because they're using that windfall to lobby and influence politicians, and their CEOs and founders and early investors are becoming richer than is even out of in belief of how much money they have. It's the system itself is so broken, and I completely get the fact that we don't want to, that they're not going to cut their salaries or cut their profits. But on the other side, I just don't know how it's sustainable to go forward when we're in essence subsidizing these companies by not having them pay any taxes. It's mind-boggling and frustrating to me.
It's tax code changes. It's absolutely tax code changes, and it's like a chicken and the egg type thing because they're not going to change the tax code because these companies pay them so much money and lobbyists and all that stuff to pad their pocket, and we're just stuck in a cycle. It's like you just said, and it's what do you do? And I don't know what you can do at this point.
John, you held up a piece of paper that said flat tax. Walk us through that. And that's been discussed before. That's a lot of times thrown out as a Republican idea. But what? Tell us what a flat tax is.
Well, I don't know that I understand it 100% completely, but it's basically the model I like is if you spend the money, you pay a tax for spending that money, and you get rid of everything else. So, I don't know how that works with corporate stuff because that's a completely different thing with businesses. But basically, there'd be no income tax for us in the federal government. We would keep all of our money. If you would go buy any type of goods, it would be taxed at a higher rate than 6.5% that it is now. So basically, that's the model. You spend it, you get taxed on it.
Yeah, and that's a theory that's put out there. That's an idea of things we can. That goes back to what I said before, though, where lower income families who have to spend a larger percentage of their income technically pay more taxes. So if you're a rich guy, if you're Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, you don't necessarily have. You've already, especially now where you already have everything. You don't necessarily need to spend more. They can save more or hide it in different ways.
Yeah.
One thing that I like, it's maybe I don't know how popular this is, but I just feel like we should let's find a limit. 13%, 17%, 20%, whatever it is, that's what you pay. And then you pay it off what you make. If you make X dot, you make whether it's $0 or 100,000 or 1 million or 100 million, you pay 15% of that to the government. We all are in. We're all taxpayers. We're all in on the government system. We're in this together. And I think corporations should be under the same deal. We get rid of the loopholes. We get rid of all that. And so that really is more truly a flat tax. That we're all payers. We're all part of this one country, one purpose, one team. I like that idea. I doubt that ever gets done because, like you said, and even Joe Biden, it's somewhat laughable. The man's been in office for 50 years, and all of a sudden now he wrote the tax code, right? Like,
right.
And now all of a sudden, hey, well, we got to fix this broken system. And Nancy Pelosi, all these people, Chuck Schumer, all these people, like we've been in here forever. Now all of a sudden it's a big deal. It's hard to stomach sometimes.
What did they say? The tax code, like the first page of the tax code is all like defining all the vocabulary that you need to know to be able to read it. The second page is setting up the rates, and then the next thousands of pages is all of the exceptions and loopholes and technical things that people can jump through and corporations could jump through to reduce their taxes. It's crazy.
I just love I don't know, like if you could maybe like you literally could do the government sends you, the IRS sends you a postcard. How much money did you make? Boom, times this, boom. Here's what you pay in. And you can still do it like we do, where you withhold it on your check or whatever, because we're not. This goes back to a bigger issue. Like as a country, we're horrible money managers. That's why we have the personal debt levels that we have, and that's why we have the debt level. Apparently, the government's the worst.
Yeah, that's why I don't mind the flat tax on what you spend too, because people actually save something. Because
I'm penalized.
Yeah, money in the bank is power. If you have money in the bank, you have power. Dave Ramsey talks about that a lot. Money is power. If you don't have it, you don't have any money saved, and you're in debt to creditors. You have zero power in this country. You have money saved and you have cash, you got power.
But it's a great topic. I think it really is. And sometimes I think, John, maybe Dave Ramsey, maybe we could put Congress through Dave Ramsey's program. We might be better off. So that's kind of our segment. Are any other topics about the money that we spent, kind of in Joe Biden's first few months here? The next thing we've got on the docket is we dive into the border. So I think we asked this a little bit last week too, or 2 weeks ago. But do we have a crisis on the border? We have a large number of unaccompanied minors coming in this country. It's well documented at this point where we're at and above capacity. these folks are coming in. Some of them are getting in-person schooling in San Diego right now, or in California. What do you guys think? Is this a crisis? Is this an example of the right trying to hype up a situation? Is this something we all should be worried about? What do you guys think? What do the fat dads think?
Rick, I'll let you go because we talked about this a little bit this week, and I really like your take on this.
There's some pressure. Maybe I don't remember what I was talking about, but
well, okay, I'll preface for your
okay.
Under a lot of pressure, but basically, you told me how if there's a problem, the government doesn't really want to fix it.
Sure. Yeah. So I think this is across the board with a lot of things, is that these things have been issues and have been building for a long time, and anybody that has any sense can see where they're headed. But from a large standpoint, these political parties have their bases and have their people, and they know what they need to do to get them fired up, and they know what they need to do to get those votes. So they're not interested in fixing a lot of these problems, I don't believe. And I think the border is a classic case of that. I mean, I think that it's been a problem for a long time. I think that the Democrats want, they take the open it up, bring everybody in kind of vibe. They won't say that, but that's kind of what they lean towards. And the Republicans want a tight border and don't let anybody in, which they don't really believe either. But it's more. But if they fix it, then they have to figure out what they have to campaign for, right? What are they gonna? And you can go down the list of all these items that we talk about every election cycle. So I mean, I think it's bad at the border. I think there's things that are going on there that are just terrible. I don't know, to answer your question, Tyler, I don't know if it's Republicans are hyping this up, if it's I don't know. I don't know if it's any worse than it was before. I mean, I think it's different with these unaccompanied minors, but I just don't know.
And I think, Rick, you're spot on, right? Like, we've been arguing over the border since we were born, since the three of us were born. Ronald Reagan had fights over border policy, and we've had runs of Democrat and Republican control of all three houses over the last 30 plus years, and nothing's ever been done on this. If this is a problem that we wanted to solve, we'd solve it.
But I go back to the sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I said I think I almost quoted Ice Ice Baby there. But
I mean, I go back to just you can just look at the Trump administration, right? Like the Democrats were like, they were not funding the wall, right? But they were we need to get the Dreamers a permanent status, right? And I would imagine that between the wall and that Dreamers thing, if they were serious about coming up with a solution that both sides wanted to, those are probably two things that they could have come together on and give a little here and give a little there and got something done. But instead they just draw this line in the sand and don't even approach trying to make that deal.
Yeah, we don't run our businesses or our households this way. There's a crisis and it's been there for 100. You got a hole in your roof. What do? You let it there or you fix it, and that's kind of this, the government doesn't work that way. They're not working this way. We, like Tyler talked about World War II, we defeated astronomical, odds, and we won World War II on two different fronts. We can't figure out how to keep people coming across our border. No, it's not possible. We put 25,000 National Guard troops in DC because we had insurgents at the Capitol. There's a wall around the Capitol, yet that's still there. If they wanted to keep these people from coming over the border, they would be stopped from coming over the border, but they don't want to. And it's like Rick said, I think it's both sides. When you hear something blown out of proportion or you hear something under proportion, usually it falls somewhere in the middle. So I think that's what we're dealing with here. It may not be as big a crisis as they want to, the Democrats want to admit that, or Republicans want to say it is. It's probably not, or it's probably a bigger deal than Democrats want to say it is. It's probably fine somewhere in the middle ground. But yeah, it needs to be, I think it needs to be fixed. We need to come up with a solution, but I don't think our government's ever going to do that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think too. To me, this is an issue that it's sort of sad. You have millions of people who are trying to escape, the countries where they're born, to come to this country to essentially become a marginalized citizen and not even have the full rights of an American citizen. A lot of times you're living, you don't live the same lifestyle. Well, I mean, I think let's admit that these folks are, they're picking fruit, they're picking vegetables, they're cleaning houses, they're mowing yards. I'm not trying to stereotype anybody, but they don't have driver's license in some cases. They don't have paperwork. They don't have birth certificates. They may not have the same opportunities to get into education, language barriers. And it's sad that both sides haven't done something to fix that. There's ways to bring people in legally and then allow them to be here and be productive and participate in the quote unquote American dream, become vibrant members of this what I think is a great nation. But right now, the way we're handling this, I think it's a failure on both houses, a plague on both our houses, whether you're Democrat or Republican. And I think there's a lot of crime and Rick alluded to it, horrible things that happen to these folks as they try to make their way here. And even when they get here, we're still wrapped up gang violence, poor housing, sometimes horrible work conditions, don't have the same access that you and I have to for medical treatment or law enforcement. And that's just not right. That shouldn't be who we are. This is an issue that we should be able to solve and figure out. But I feel like both sides just look the other way. And I think too that there's a reason for it, right? I think big corporations make lots of money by being able to pay someone 50 cents an hour to pick lettuce. And I think people like cheap daycare, cheap lawn care, cheap cleaning services. And I think those are people in power. And I don't know. I just feel like we need to do better. And I feel like both sides just sort of jump on this and kind of play. And then we try to go back and forth to try to win votes. I just think the whole thing is just kind of messed up. It just doesn't fit with I guess my moral code. Maybe you guys think I'm nuts.
Yeah, do we spend money to try and make those countries better? Are those countries fixable?
We do.
Cartel.
We do. Where's that money go though?
Yeah, I mean it goes right back to the cartels all the time, or the government and the cartels. How many I didn't remember the stat, but it was like up to like 14 people that were running for election have been murdered in some country. I mean, that they just, as soon as somebody tries to stand up, you've never watched Narcos on Netflix. That show gets into it pretty good about what these countries deal with and how bad it is. Yeah, I don't know. I think we tried to fix it, right? We tried to fix it in the past in those countries. I mean, we spent money there. We put a lot of resources in there, and I think we figured out that you're not going to change it. So maybe that's not even.
Well, we don't always have the great track record of backing the right people in those countries either.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic for another.
I think too, you brought up Mexico is one of the largest standing armies in the entire world. One would like to think if they wanted to, control the lawlessness within their own borders, they could do that. They overthrew the Spanish Empire, right? I think they can control their own borders if they wanted to.
They protect the resorts where that money's at. Nothing happens bad at resorts. Those areas, the tourist areas, those are pretty safe because they know that's the money areas.
Yeah, I don't know. We can do better. We need to figure out how to solve some of these problems instead of just use them to our advantage.
I think about this a lot. And again, going back to just like even how we treat people, citizens in the United States with, people working full-time jobs, but still being under the poverty line, and that kind of thing. And these immigrants coming here and working for nothing, and, companies taking advantage of their undocumented status for their benefit. and that really, those things are subsidizing our lifestyle, the way that we're treating those people, whether we, to me, that makes me uncomfortable. Is that, is this person is, let's say, I mean, this is maybe not the best example, but let's say like McDonald's, right? This person is, there's people working full time there that are, making just barely enough to skate by so that I can have a Big Mac that's, under $6 or whatever. Those are the kind of things that really bug me about how our system works. And
yeah, John, I don't think these, or Rick, I don't think these people are even working at McDonald's.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that's an example of even how we're treating our citizens, our citizens, the people who are, let alone the people who are coming across and that we're taking advantage of. I think it's sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make an argument here, right? Like that these folks come in as, this is gonna be harsh word language, but as a slave class that comes in here, works. They're marginalized people. I mean, we talk. Turn on Twitter, turn on your news tonight. Go to one of the big cable channels. You're gonna hear about that we're like, if you watch CNN, the United States of America is full of institutional racism, and we're a racist, bigoted countries. But yet these folks are surging our border to send their children here to pick lettuce and do all this, not great things. So it's obviously where they're coming from can't be very good. Like that, there's hope for the next generation to come better here. But I just feel like we're in this cycle where we bring these people in to, like you said, supplement our lifestyle. We help then move them up into basically, I don't know, I would just call it a level of permanent poverty. I mean, these people aren't going to they're not going to live in mansions. They're a long ways from that, just like you and I are. And then we got to bring more in. So as we move them through this weird cycle, right? Like through these marginalized, and we're going to put them up. We're going to then provide this, $100 and some billion for sustainable housing for them. And we're going to try to universal wages and things like that. And then we're going to keep bringing these non-citizens in, and then we'll raise them up. It's just a weird cycle as a nation that we're in. I don't think it's a good cycle, and I think there's a lot there for us to maybe unpack. But I think that is one of the reasons, no matter which side that is in power, we actually don't ever see anything done. Because I think that I think people are benefiting from this system.
Right, and like you said, these people who I think anybody who has a job where they're in essence selling their time for money, or their effort, or their time, they're working on the clock, whether you're making six figures or making below minimum, at minimum wage or less. We as those group of working people, we have a lot more in common with each other than the hedge fund managers, the tech company CEOs, the political class. The realities that we live in are completely different, I think. And I think that's part of the reason some of the games that the politicians play is they're trying to divide up us plebes when we're really the ones that are fighting the same fight, just at different comfort levels, probably.
Yeah, I think that goes back to some of the things we've talked about before. And again, this doesn't paint us in a very good light, but we talked about us being like just a silly people in this country right now. And we seem to be obsessed with conspiracy theories, whether it be QAnon with Trump supporters, or that Russia somehow elected Donald Trump and he was a puppet of their government. We just go down all these things, and it just, all it really does is divide us from like the middle class on down. In the people at the power, whether you're Republican or Democrat, they're all millionaires in Congress, except for a couple of them. They're all going to their mansions, to their country clubs and their fancy steak dinners, probably laughing at us. Sometimes I feel like we're caught up in a big episode of like the Truman Show, the Jim Carrey movie, right? Like, and we can't wake up from it.
I think that daily. I think we're the Truman Show daily, but for a lot of different reasons.
I'm going to do a little little plug here. And this will be an accountability thing for me. I've been talking about doing a little on our off weeks, doing a little like maybe a little history show type thing. And so I'm gonna announce it that I'm doing one next week. So I have to do it.
Dun, 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 breaking news.
Yeah. But anyway,
Sorry, no sounder. Not that cool. Not that.
But anyway, I was just to tease it a little bit. I really was. I'm gonna do something on Shays Rebellion, and I went into the process thinking I wanted to take this quote from Thomas Jefferson and contrast it against the quote that our current politicians, the rhetoric they're using for the Capitol insurgency. And let me just say that that's not the direction that's going to go. The similarities to what caused that rebellion to what is happening now and what has been happening throughout our history is quite striking. And I'll probably talk. That's what I'm going to talk about and go over with that. So look for that on this channel next week sometime. And there's my commitment.
Little Phat history from Rick.
Yep.
John, any closing comments from you?
No, you guys just, I think that last
crazy talk.
last 5 minutes that you guys talked about what we face as people and togetherness and us against them, I think that's kind of the basis of why my thoughts of starting this show. So I think that 5-minute clip I'm going to cut out and post on its own thing, because that was gold for what we want to accomplish here on letting people know and realizing that we're all on the same team.
Well, let's move on to the next topic. Since we just solved the border crisis, let's talk about the next thing. I just think this is, we talked about media hypocrisy a lot. Media coverage, Biden versus Trump. I grabbed a couple of things here just to sort of highlight the point that we're making. Biden highlight both CNN clips here. You know, you got Biden looking very, very presidential, very well. You got Trump in an angry shot. You got Trump and Jim Acosta fighting with each other. We see Biden with his little cheat sheet on which politicians to call on and who's friendly and who's got a friendly face and who doesn't. What do you guys think of this? What do you make of this? My personal opinion is the hypocrisy of the media, whether it's Fox News or CNN or MSNBC is. I mean, we have propaganda channels, not news channels. That's where I'm at. Brothers Mueller, what do you guys think? How does this taste to you?
I agree. Go ahead, John.
No, I'll let you go. You're on a roll right now. I'll probably say something stupid. So,
well, I think that my process for digesting news is I don't get any of it from, or nearly any of it from TV news networks. I think it's all mostly just talking heads and ratings grabs. So I do a lot of it reading online. And what I try to do is, like, if there's a story that I think is interesting or I think is important, I will try to run the gamut of different news organizations from, going, to the way to the left with, things like Vox and CNN and those places, but then going the opposite direction on the right and reading perspectives from that side and trying to get some in the middle, and then just processing that information, because to me that's the only way at this point you can figure out what's actually going on, is by determining what is her hyperbole from both sides and really cut it down to the bone of what actually is happening. It's time consuming and you can't get as much information, but you kind of get a better sense of what's happening on those individual stories. But you're right. I mean, you can even go back to Biden falling when he's walking up the stairs to Air Force One, right? When Trump slipped and fell down that ramp, it was blasted all over the news cycles, right? And then when it's Biden, then it's like, no big deal. People slip, right?
Trump was afraid of stairs. He's on every late night show being made fun of. Yeah, it's just, to me, and that's again, I think goes back to what we were talking about before. I think this is done on purpose to help to divide us, to keep two Americas.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I go back to look what Saturday Night Live's covering. You know, they couldn't help, and not even Saturday Night Live. Some of the Saturday Night Live stuff is actually funny, but you go to the late night shows, the talk shows, the Fallon and Colbert, and look at all those. You know, Trump was every joke to start the first 10 minutes of the show. Most of them weren't even funny because they were just making up jokes to please whoever's paying their bills or whoever's, you know. But now, you know, Biden's a big of gaff laugh show as Trump ever was, and none of it's getting covered. So you just can see the hypocrisy, the paid off, you know, all that stuff. So to take any news network or anything they say, and I'm including Fox in that, and I'm more of a conservative. Just to anything they say is just, it's garbage. But the problem is, you know, I remember as a kid getting off the bus at Grandma and Grandpa's house on the farm, and what did they have on it every 5:30? They had the 5:30 news. And there's so many people that watch that 5:30 news and are going to treat it like gospel on both sides of the aisle. And that's sad. That's sad that we don't have any real journalism anymore.
You have to be really careful. I've seen this with my own. I've watched like a press conference, like live, like happen, and then you'll tune in that night. And I'll do sometimes what Rick does. I'll watch a little bit of Fox, and I'll switch over to MSNBC, and then over to CNN, and then maybe you know, back to something else. And you'll see the same topic being covered, but they'll cut a clip, and you're like, that's not what happened. That's not what he said. Like, you're just way out of context. And it's sad. And again, you got to invest all of this time to actually figure out what happened. And Casey's famous saying, right? You got to look at 13 pages of Google searches in order to actually know what really happened. And that's sad. It should be wrong. I mean, it should be wrong. A lot of times too, I think this is a key thing, like especially like your CBSs, your ABCs. There's federal money, federal dollars that goes to those programs to provide news. And when they're called, and we talked about like Washington Post 2 weeks ago too. Granted, that's different, but this stuff happens on our news channels as well. They should lose that federal money. That they should not be taxpayer funded and be able to allow and be able to just not cover the truth. I just personally feel that way. I think that's wrong, especially when it's found out that misreported this, or in some cases blatant lied. I mean, go back to the Bush years and Dan Rather, right? Like literally making up documents and putting them on the air. There should be consequences to that. And there's just no consequences. There's no consequences in journalism right now.
You know,
do something about that. Like this is another thing. Like as citizens, we should demand fair, balanced, accurate news coverage.
PBS, you didn't say PBS, national NPR. You know, I mean, those are straight funded up.
Yeah, they're still incredibly biased.
Yeah.
I mean, incredibly biased.
And it's too bad that we can't have that trust for somebody to put in that legwork for a lot of people who don't have the time to do that kind of research, and somebody you can trust to distill things down to their essence. I mean, I'll tell you, to be honest with you, when I knew we were going to talk about this topic, I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this press conference. I'm gonna watch the whole thing. I got like 2 questions into it, and I'm like, I can't do this. There's no value in anything that's happening. Like I mean, I'm sure there was probably things in there that were important or were worth it, but there's just so much just garbage in there that I couldn't do it.
And too, I mean, obviously from a politician standpoint, they're going to try to brush over their warts and highlight their accomplishments. But some of these, like fact checking, right? Every time Trump spoke, we had fact checkers. Like in some cases, we were live fact checking. Now all of a sudden, we don't really fact check. But the hypocrisy of the whole thing drives me nuts. Whether you fall on the left or right, I just feel like from a journalistic standpoint, it should be the same. Like, I want to know if Joe Biden is telling me the truth or not, as much as I want to know if Donald Trump was telling me the truth or not. And I don't ever foresee, this is never going to happen. Jim Acosta is not going to attack Joe Biden Um, it's just, it's not fair. It's not right. And I think I think it angers people on the right when this happens. And I just think, again, it's another way to just divide people.
And it's not just the networks and on-air stuff, newspapers, even our local newspapers now. Our local newspapers used to be pretty much mostly written by people in town. Now it's syndicated. I don't know if that's the right word in the newspaper world, but it's all paid and bought stuff. And if anybody follows me on Twitter, my favorite thing to do is the Mitchell Daily Republic in town will always put stuff that's 80% Democratic, 20% Republican. It's like, you people, do you know what the town of Mitchell is? And you wonder why you're losing subscribers. I mean, to put that kind of slant on stuff and to the hypocrisy that they do in the local papers is just, I guess you don't know your base. I guess you don't know your who's actually reading your paper. But so it's just not cable news networks. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's all news media. I hate to say it, but that's the world we live in right now. Rick, you said that you try to find some middle of the road. I don't know who those people are anymore. I really don't. I've become to the point. I used to be a big media junkie. I loved it. Like, I loved watching it. Loved tuning into it. Over the last 5 years, I can't do it anymore. It's as if because I know what I've seen with my own eyes, and then I see the reporting, and I'm just like, I can't do this. This is
just listen to Tyrus, man. Tyrus on Fox Nation. Tyrus will let you know.
He'll let you know. All right, there we go.
I would just to throw one out that I've been kind of surprised with, and granted, I'm always skeptical. I'm never saying that these people are 100% true and saints of it, but I've been getting some good. I've been really enjoying their takes and some of the reporting that they've been doing on the Hills, the Rising in the morning. Let's get that on YouTube. Their segments. They're definitely slanted, but I think the people on there are generally pretty upfront about how their perspective of the story is based on their opinions. And like I said, you always got to take everything with a grain of salt, but I've been really enjoying that. So I would encourage everybody just to check it out and
that was the
make their own opinion about it. But I've been really.
That was the Rising.
The Rising, yep.
Okay.
There we go. A couple recommendations from the Phat Dads. We can move on to the next segment, John. Boom. We're going to turn this over to Rick. Rick.
Now this is gonna be slightly disappointing from the fire that I brought last week or 2 weeks ago. So this week we're gonna talk about the Bezos, Jeff Bezos. And really the reason that that it's not as exciting as Bill Gates is his charitable giving has been a lot less. He is not known for his
ex-wife.
What?
Well, he gave a bunch to his ex-wife.
Right, and she apparently is going to be the charitable one. But he has he's probably given the less overall. He did set a record. I think he donated $10 billion in 2020. But that was once again giving that money to one of his own foundations, and there hasn't been any indication on what that money is going to, other than it's the Save the Earth Fund kind of deal. But I will give him some credit. There was a story where he's kind of one of his things is underprivileged communities and preschools and education, and he gave away. A few years ago, he gave away $100 million to that. And one of the things he did, and this was a big story when you start digging into that side of things, the charitable giving stuff is he didn't, most of the time when these people give away their money, they put out calls for grant applications, right? He with some advisors, and that advisors, always makes you a little nervous about who's helping him, but he identified 34 organizations or something like that, and basically they just somebody gave him a quick call, asked them in 500 words what would you do with this much money, and that just wrote checks to him, and the man had no oversight, didn't demand that the money was spent in any sort of way. He did ask for a yearly report, but he didn't say the report had to be over, how much detail it had to be. So I thought that was actually a pretty cool thing to do, because that's not how it mostly works with these people. They're given their money and then they want the control over it. But he just kind of said, here, you guys are doing good work, I think, and so keep doing it. So I don't want to definitely just trash these people when they do something good. Let's give them little props they need there. But once again, it's one of those things that this isn't these are drop in the bucket type donations by them. For instance, let me get the exact number here. Bezos's net worth over 2020 increased by almost $68 billion in 2020. So giving away $10 billion or $10 billion or whatever he did last year. Yeah, it's not much. It doesn't equate to a whole lot, but he's a powerful person. He kind of is a little more under the radar than Gates is. He does own that Washington Post. Amazon's new headquarters is going to be in Washington, D.C. Facebook and Amazon are now the highest spenders for lobbying efforts in the United States. Think about those things. Those aren't coincidences, I don't think. And he just looks like an evil genius. I don't think you can ever trust a guy with a bald head.
I saw a picture of him drawn like Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Or John.
Yeah.
I'm growing
Not
up.
isn't quite as intimidating as the bees.
Well, you could say he hasn't done anything too crazy yet, but Bill Gates didn't do anything crazy until he got out of the Microsoft business, really, either.
Right. And Bezos is just stepping away now.
Wait till Bezos gets bored, and then look how much more money and power he's going to have than Bill Gates. With how much he's worth.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah. I don't. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rick. Make your point.
I was just gonna say, I don't. I'm not saying that he's a saint or anything like that. I'm just saying that there's just very little to go on the charitable side compared to what Gates has been doing.
Yeah, I think for me, and you touched on it, right? We're building a headquarters of the world's richest company in DC. We now own a newspaper, which allows us to control the news in a lot of ways. We made massive amounts of profit during COVID. We benefited greatly from COVID and shutdowns and things like that. We have the charitable giving. We've got the influence. We control an arm of the media. To me, that's a scary dude. There's some scary things going on there. We're a large employer. I think that's something to keep an eye on. And we just talked about the Washington Post the other day too. This is one, right? They purposefully misquoted Trump during the Georgia election and didn't release it until after all follow-up elections were done and an impeachment trial. It's just really tough to look at these guys and say that they're all saints. I think we all appreciate the giving, but like you said, give away $10 billion when you made 68. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. But again, where is it going, and how's it being used? Is it, are we looking to cure cancer, or is it going into a charity that's going to funnel back into our own pocket in some way?
You can look at that too. I look at that of how good a person is. I judge that a little bit by, so did he give a big bonus out last year to his Amazon employees? He made all this extra money. Did he do anything to take care of his employees that were probably working longer and harder shifts than they ever had before to get everything out the door? I don't know if that's true or not, or if he did or didn't. It definitely wasn't covered in the media, so I doubt there was that. But man, when you have so much money and so much power, and you can look at these people that you are not paying very well, and you can't even give them a little bit a year to a bonus or something. Man, to me, that's not a good dude. Good leaders, good people would give their people money. They would share the wealth a little bit.
We'll quote Joe Biden. We'll quote Joe Biden today. Amazon paid $0 in federal income taxes. This guy's worth $72 billion. Rick just told us went up $68 billion during COVID. The company, and one of the pictures here is at that point the company had made $24 billion in profit during COVID-19, and yet paid no taxes, no federal income taxes. But yet our cost of living has gone up, over the last several months, and we do pay taxes. That just to me isn't right. You can make billions and billions and somehow be exempt, and yet the middle class is going to get squeezed.
Yeah, and there's several things that are topical with the news this week, right? There's the union vote in Alabama, I believe, for Amazon workers to unionize, and how whatever you feel about unions and their benefit or not to places and to people. Bezos ordered ordered hit jobs, right? Pushbacks on all these pro-union politicians that are going after Amazon. It's pretty out there in the news, and these are one of the things I'm pretty confident about because it's pretty widely reported that he himself authorized these execs at Amazon to really just take the gloves off and go after all these politicians. You can argue whether that was successful or not, because I think a lot of them kind of looked stupid when they did it. But and then you'd also say Amazon has raised their employee, like everyone makes $15 minimum wage or $15 at least working for Amazon. But I've heard a lot of people say, and a lot of reports that that's not just like an altruistic thing. That's a competitive thing, right? Like
Sure.
they're trying to suck up all these workers right now because they can afford to from these places, and in essence have places go out of business, and they can move into these communities and just expand their power, right? So
it'll be interesting. Sioux Falls, right in our back door. Drove past it and looked over here on the interstate. It is massive, and what it does to our local economy here. I mean, there's going to be some effect. We'll see what it is, good or bad. But I think it's coming to our doorstep for sure.
Yeah, it's something to be watching, and we'll keep an eye on them, and we'll keep talking about it.
Tyler, that's all you got for tonight?
That's all we got, unless we didn't cover any local politics. If you guys are feeling real brave, I could throw a local topic out there, but we are coming up against our time.
Yeah, you know me, I am an early to bed guy. I've been getting up in the morning and running. So yeah, I mean, this
on purpose. Is someone chasing you?
Not the first time I happened to slip on the treadmill or slip next to the treadmill, fell on the treadmill. It started and I had to start going. So now it's just the routine. I've been doing crunches. Never get a 6-pack back, but man, that's painful stuff. Just try to do 10 crunches. When you get off this tonight, go and try to do 10 crunches and tell me how you feel in the morning.
Hard pass.
It is.
John, you're the worst fat dad I've ever heard of.
When you see my title tonight, it's called Not So Fat Dad. So yeah, I got one thing my thing to leave the show on tonight is opening day baseball tomorrow. I got a few predictions. This is a Byron Buxton rookie card. Probably not a lot of Twins fans watching, but my prediction is that Byron Buxton is going to finish in the top 3 in MVP voting this year. Finally going to stay healthy. And my World Series prediction is the Minnesota Twins versus the Los Angeles Dodgers. We're going to relive the 60, whatever the heck's World Series those were. So opening day tomorrow, Twins play, I believe, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. So excited for baseball to start up again.
I will be tuning into that game right after I get my first COVID vaccine tomorrow. First dose of that tomorrow afternoon. Then we'll belly up to the Twins game and then hopefully have a full season of baseball.
My prediction for the baseball season is that John and Rick, after a strong Twins start, they will do as they always do and quickly fade, and you two will be depressed. And if there's any gamblers out there, I would go out and bet opposite of John. That's what I'm saying.
That's always a good strategy.
I got faith, man. This is the year. This is the year.
You heard it right there. You heard it here, right here, folks. So there we go.
So what was your local politics story? We don't necessarily talk about it, but I'm interested in what you were going to bring up.
Well, our governor was in the news once again here this week, and specifically on CNN. And we also we're in the process of passing a couple of transgender bills. And you both have daughters, and that's always an interesting topic to discuss.
Yeah, I think that'll be maybe we should save that one because that might be a lot longer than this. But
fair enough. We'll tune in next time.
I will say this is that I think you can see where people the media is starting to take Noam seriously because they are quoting her on all sorts of things, good and bad, right? Like the left is piling on her, and they're the one that they're going for quotes for, and it's her star is definitely rising, whether we want it to or not. I guess that's everybody's opinion. Everybody has their own opinion there, but she's definitely out there.
She's taking grenades from the left and the right over the transgender deal. I really do. I think this is something we should either go to chewing the fat segment on an off week, or we devote some serious time to the next time the fat dads assemble. Interesting topic.
Agreed.
All right. Well, good show. Thanks everybody for listening. If you got suggestions, just let us know. We're working on a bunch of different things to get a different platform out there. A lot of different ways that we can get the podcast out there. Stay tuned for that, and appreciate you guys staying with us. And we promise, like always, we'll be better next week.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
All right. Catch you later.
See y'all. Great show.
See ya.